Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the Leading Edge Cricket Podcast. Today we've got 3 huge days of cricket to review, particularly getting into crunch time around Group A and 2 fantastic games of cricket we have seen today. I am Rob. I'm joined by the pumpkin hoarder himself,
Hey.
Rich. How are you?
I'm good. I've been relegated to the pumpkin room, so they haven't been carved up yet. Soup's coming. So.
I like how you've actually got a pumpkin room as well.
I don't think it's quite
a pumpkin room.
It's not officially known as the pumpkin room.
So. I like it. So you're going to be in a pretty chipper mood because you've just told me Foresters won, so you've had a good day out. Bit of podcasting to do. We're gonna work our way through this. So we're going to start 3 days ago where it's Australia versus Bangladesh, and we're going to work our way up to what has just gone on today, 2 fantastic games of cricket. And I keep saying it's a very, very good competition. I saw something on Sky Sports today and it was going, it's not that good a competition. There's not that many runs. There's some one-sided games. Actually, I feel like we're seeing some fantastic cricket time and time again.
That's ridiculous. No, we've said this last time. It's been a really good competition. I think if people are just watching the game wrong, if they think that this is not a good competition. So I don't believe that's just nonsense, isn't it? There's a lot of spouting nonsense coming on from some of these pundits. So.
Nonsensical, mate. Very nonsensical.
Right.
So let's roll back. Aussies, Bangladesh. We're sat at this point in time where it is a shootout between Australia and South Africa, which is where we're going to finish today's episode. But this was kind of the preamble for what was going to continue, and it was all about trying to evolve net run rate.
Exactly, yeah. It's how did they get here? So Bangladesh, sorry, just one sec. Rob, can you turn me down a bit at your end? I'm getting an echo coming through here. So if that's all right, my boy.
Done.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that, people. So Bangladesh, they finished the World Cup run with a 50 feet in a row, didn't they? Poor old Bangladesh. It had to be said that this is a very improving Australia team. They didn't start particularly strongly, did they? But they looked stronger and stronger every game. They skittled the Tigers for just 85 in 15 overs in this game. A 1-run improvement, if you remember, on the last outing against South Africa for Bangladesh. So that's progress. Maybe not. We'll call it progress anyway. Leggy Adam Zampa was a star turn, taking a competition best 5 for 19 off his 4 overs in this one. The Seamers did pretty well too, though, with Mitch Starc claiming 2 for 21 off his 4, and Josh Hazlewood looking very, very good, 2 for 8 off 2. Not much to report, obviously, in an 85 all-out batting card, especially once reduced to 5 for 33. Only 3 players made double figures, Rob. Mohammed Naeem, 17, Captain Mamadullah, 16. I think his first name is Captain, isn't it, Mamadullah? I'm pretty sure that's the case. And Shamim Hossain at 19 as well. So, yeah, not a great performance. I think the moment of the innings for me was seeing wicket. Was it Matthew Wade who dropped a catch off Zampa, which would have been his hat-trick ball, and hearing Zampa on the stump microphone just going, that was my hat-trick. So I did enjoy that. Quickly, let's get right through this. In reply, look, captain and opener Aaron Finch took a very, very sharp 40 off just 20 balls with the recalled Mitch Marsh. Where's he been? He was so good in the one-day stuff in the warm-up games. He finished unbeaten on 16 off just the 5 balls. That's all he needs to see the Aussies home for their 3rd win. At this point, to put them in 2nd spot, level on South Africa going into their final games. We've got to give credit to Australia for this performance. Obviously, the Bangladesh side that will need to do some soul searching. It's not just been the defeats, but the manner of some of these defeats. I think that's been really, really... really kind of upsetting, I think, for Bangladeshi fans. Obviously, missing Shakib Al Hasan in the last 2 games has certainly not helped as he's been on solid form. But they're going to feel that this is a pretty lackluster end to what started as a pretty promising little World Cup run, wasn't it, with the qualifiers? So great stuff for Australia, but Bangladesh, I think their fans are going to be really, really upset with the showing of what Bangladesh have put in front of us.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I'll start with the positives. Adam Zampa is one of the best bowlers in this tournament, hands down. Yeah. The middle overs of this competition belong to Adam Zampa. 10 wickets in the competition so far in the middle overs. This 5 for 19 here. He went around the park a little bit against England, but that doesn't make him unique. That just makes him part of everyone else that seems to do the same. 2 for 12 against Sri Lanka. 2 for 21 against Australia. He dots people up. He's hard to get away, and he keeps picking up niggling wickets. He's doing the exact same role that Adil Rashid's done for England for many a year, and he's doing it high class. If I'm Bangladesh, I showed promise. I showed we're better than associate nations, and then we've come up against the real top teams in a difficult group, but they're both difficult groups for different reasons.
Yeah.
And we've just not performed. We've not been good enough. We've not been good enough with bat. We've not been good enough with ball, and we've not been good enough in the field. So it's, I don't know. I like to feel optimistic about smaller nations and teams lower down the rankings. But for Bangladesh, this is it's quite a tough one to take. There's good players, but they haven't executed well at big times.
Yeah, there's some players that did start, pretty well, didn't they? Having name at the top of the order here, he struck a couple of 50s. He looked really good. Shakib's obviously done really well with bat and ball. Mushfiqur Rahim at times as well looks okay with the bat, but they've just not done it consistently enough. And you cannot keep getting skittled for scores of less than 100 and expect people to be satisfied. It's just not good enough. So, like you, we both like to be really positive for these nations. I would like to Bangladesh. We want to see them coming back up. But at the moment, they're in a bit of a shambles. And we'll see where they go from that. Maybe they just ran out of steam, perhaps, didn't they, in this competition? And it's a very, very good Australian team, which we will talk about in a little bit later. So, West Indies, Sri Lanka, the next game, Rob. Let's get on to this one. I think we can call it a very disappointing and frustrating T20 World Cup for Windies. And that continued in this game as they slumped to a third defeat in 4 games. This time at the hands of a very, very deserving Sri Lankan side that we are pretty excited about. So first innings total of 189 for 3 for Sri Lanka proved just too much for the men from the Caribbean as they fell 20 runs short in the chase. Sri Lanka, again, really impressive with the bat. Openers, Pathum Nissanka hit 51 off 41. Kusal Pereira, 29 for 21. He's been a bit quiet, but he put himself together a little knock there. And once again, the impressive little left-hander, Sharif Asalanka, he was superb. He top scored with 68 off 41. Skipper Dasan Shanaka finished unbeaten on 25 off 14, although he was dropped on 1. Catchers win matches, people. Come on. With the ball, Dre Russ led the way, 2 for 33 for him, with the only other wicket coming from Dwayne Bravo. So let's get on to the other side of it. So this is where it was won, obviously. It was a great target to set for Sri Lanka, but it was the bowlers that got them the win. And in the chase, so for West Indies, a super talented Shimron Hetmyer did all he could to be the hero of the day, didn't he? This was a stunning knock in a losing cause. So he's unbeaten 81 off 54 balls, 8 fours, 4 sixes. Just incredible knock, but it was just not enough. As pretty much the only other contributor was Nicholas Paran's 46 and 34. It's just so frustrating when you've got a bloke at one end, 81 or 54, and nobody else is sticking with him as you get through the middle and the tail. No one even made double figures apart from those two, which is just not good enough. But credit the Sri Lankan bowlers, okay? While West Indies, we feel frustrated, obviously, like I say, credit has to go to Sri Lanka. Wanadu Hasaranga de Silva, we keep talking about that man, Rob. He's back again. He started with the ball, 2 for 19 off his 4 overs, including cleaning up West Indies skipper Kieron Pollard first ball. That helps. Binara Fernanda, the big guy, he took 2 wickets, both coming in the same over, and Shamika Karunaratne also got himself 2, whilst Jasmantha Chamira and Captain Darshan Shanaka both grabbed 1 apiece. So a really positive end for what I want to call resurgent Sri Lankan side. Saw them win twice in the Super 12 after they went unbeaten in the qualifying group. As for Windies, tough competition, and like Bangladesh, it's back to the drawing board, isn't it? One more game to come at this point, but I think they're going to be thinking it's how many of these players are going to be, at the next competition? Some of these big names.
It's a hard one for them to take, in my opinion, because they have been pretty good throughout. Their batting was okay in quite a few periods. They scored well against pace bowlers and they scored quickly against spinners. And this is not including the Associate Nation games in the qualifying stages, which they were too good for. The problem for me comes down to the pace bowling hasn't been good enough, consistent enough to actually go and try and win games of cricket against good quality teams. They've gone around the park a little bit too much and they've backed themselves into the corner. The spin bowling attack we know is excellent, but that only makes up a certain proportion of the overs that the guys are bowling. You still need to bowl your seamers from somewhere, and the seamers haven't been good enough or up to the same speed. Now, we have seen pace bowlers go around the park more in this competition, but Sri Lanka are just slightly worse than anyone else in the seam bowling department. But they're not a million miles off. They're not the team that's come into this World Cup with the worst record since the last T20 World Cup, because that's what they were coming in. They're a better team than that. The West Indies, I'm scratching my head a little bit. It depends where you sit on the West Indies, how your outlook is. If you're mad keen on West Indies cricket, you're a West Indies cricket fan, you're probably sat there going, great, all these superstars of yesteryear are finally starting to dwindle away and we're going to have an excitement and new players coming through, giving opportunities to play in this sort of competition. So you might look at it like that, or you might go, actually, the dynasty that we've had over the last 10, 12 years of international cricket is starting to come to an end, and it's quite a scary point going forward.
Yeah, it's all about who's going to replace them, isn't it? That's the thing. It's like Sri Lanka. They lost so many quality players, like world-class, elite players at the same time. West Indies are potentially going to be doing the same thing. But they do have the likes of Evin Lewis. They do have Shimron Hetmyer. They do have Nicholas Paran. They have got some young talent coming through. And with the ball, Akeal, Hossain and others, there is some ability there. Obviously, that's the seam attack. There's a few knocking about. But this tournament, I honestly thought that they would be the team that goes through. Potentially with England. So it's really, really disappointing for me to see what's happened to this West Indies team. 1 win in 4 games, 2 points. That's all they've got to show for it. It's not enough, is it? And the competition deserved a good West Indies team as well. We've just not had that excitement that they usually bring.
Yeah, it is a shame. The one player I want to call out from both teams who he's not gone under the radar, but because other players score better runs and faster runs and hit more sixes, he does go under the radar. And you mentioned him. Sri Lanka's been superb. 80 not out against Bangladesh, 35 against the Aussies, 21 against Australia, against South Africa and England, and 68 here. He has been absolutely phenomenal in this competition, and he's right up there with the best players at the start and middle overs of the game throughout the competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's been solid. And it's really good to see that Sri Lanka have got some players that they can build around as well, isn't it, now going forward? Bit of hope back in the Sri Lankan camp. Let's jump away from Group A. Let's get into Group B. We had 2 games on Friday, New Zealand, Namibia, India, Scotland. You would expect the wins to go the way you would expect. And that's exactly what happened, didn't it? A convincing win for New Zealand against the Namibian side that I think, once again, though, they're going to be relatively proud of their effort. But they were beaten by a margin of 52 runs. So a really, really solid win for New Zealand. They amassed 163 for 4, steady contribution from the top 4, and then excellent unbeaten knocks from man of the match Jimmy Neesham, 35 off 23, and Glenn Phillips, 39 off 21. Starting to see a bit of what he's all about. Bernard Schultz, 1 for 15 for him. Skipper Gerard Erasmus, he got a wicket, as did the main man, David Weiser. Namibia, again, this is something that they have done really, really well. They might not have put big scores up, but they battered the 20 overs. It's like an old-fashioned losing draw team, isn't it? You can never bowl them out, but they're never going to win a game. They finished on 111 for 7. Disappointed they couldn't go higher, especially after opener Stephen Bard and Michael van Lingen got up to 47 before the first wicket fell. So really frustrating from them in that respect. Van Lingen top scored with 25 before Neesham got one through his defences to clean him up. Once the openers fell, it was steady procession of wickets, wasn't it? New Zealand claimed a win that never looked in doubt, but Namibia did make them work for the full 20 overs for their victory. So at this point then, New Zealand's second spot, their final game against Afghanistan coming up in what should be the game of the group stage in both groups. As for Namibia, this was their last World Cup fixture. Their last World Cup fixture is the final group game, as they will hope to shake things up against the reborn Indian side that are on a bit of a run. And we'll get to them very, very shortly.
What did you expect? You expect the Black Caps to go and win. The Black Caps went and won the game of cricket. There's nothing newsworthy about that. I think the thing for the Black Caps, which is going to make them feel pretty good, is Martin Guptill's got some runs in this competition, so has Daryl Mitchell. Kane Williamson, Devon Conway knocking it around a strike rate of 88 during those middle overs, not quite good enough, but the end is what's going to excite them. Their game plan is knock it around in the middle overs and have the big boys come in and smack it. And Glenn Phillips, 39 of 21, got his time in way better than the last game where he ran Martin Guptill into the ground so he couldn't get 100 because he couldn't get it off the square. And Jimmy Neesham, 35 off 23. That finish, a strike rate of 240 to finish the innings, is what basically solidified the win. If they'd gone on and scored at a 100 or 120 strike rate, they're chasing 140 and it becomes a really even contest. But the Black Caps with the ball, superb. One of the best teams in this competition, hands down, with their ability to restrict opposition with the ball. They did it in the one-day World Cup back in 2019, maybe it might have been. Everyone that they played against, they chase small amounts. And when they're setting scores, they don't need to set the world alight because the bowling attack is so consistent. And you saw it here. The seamers, 66 for 5 from the seam attack, going at a strike rate of 84. That's exceptional. Anything under 110 is exceptional. That's world class. 42 for 2 from the spinners. This showed Mitch Starc. Mitch Starc is a very strange bowler in this competition. And the reason I say that is because Mitchell Santner has got a fantastic economy rate, but does not look like taking a wicket so long as he's got a ball in his hand. So he can bowl dot balls, but he's not going to increase your strike rate of bowling and taking wickets. And likewise, a big worry for the Black Caps is Adam Milne's come into this attack. Now, he was a reserve, came in when Lockie Ferguson came in. Adam Milne is up there as being one of the worst bowlers in the competition. His economy rate is really, really high, and his strike rate is astronomical. And if you're watching on YouTube, there's a graphic, and you'll see one name right at the top. It's Adam Milne, who is a million miles behind absolutely anyone else. And that is a really, really big worry for the Black Caps going forward.
That'd be great if that was a picture of a mountain, because Adam Milne's would be at the summit.
Exactly.
The way to describe it if you're not
the
watching.
Other way. But Black Caps win, mate. You expect them to win. They were clinical without being flashy, which is pretty much how they play their cricket. They would be the same against anyone else. Can they go and be it against Afghanistan?
It's weird comparison potentially, but I'm starting to feel like New Zealand are like the Germany of German football team. They're like the Germany of cricket at the moment.
Yeah.
They're just ultra organised, aren't they? They're just going about their business. Yeah, so good win for them. We'll talk about how Group B looks in a minute, because it's really, really finely balanced. But let's just get India, Scotland out the way first. India were on a run. Shocking start to this World Cup. As we all know, they lost the first 2 games, but they are now flying. 8-wicket win for this one. Scotland were dismissed for just 85. Very Bangladesh-esque, wasn't it? India knocked them off in just 6.3 overs. Net run rate perfection, lads. Well battered. This was clinical. This was superb. This was just brutal. George Munsey, let's get into this. In his 100th game for Scotland, started well, but after he was the second man out for 24, things went downhill fast, didn't they? Callum McLeod, Michael Leask, and Mark Watt showed a bit of resistance in the middle order, but the Indian attack was relentless. JJ Bumrah, 2 for 10 for him off 3.2, and he made the early inroads. He took the first wicket, and then he took the final wicket of the innings to wrap things up. In between, spin duo Ravichandran Ashwan and Ravi Jadeja both took 3 wickets apiece, whereas Mohammad Shami took 3 for 15. And a run out by sub-fielder Ishan Kishan rounded things out nicely. So at this point, obviously, they're only chasing 85. India know what they need to do. And if they want to have any chance of qualifying, they have to win these games, this one and their final game, but they also have to make sure their run rate was king. An opening pair, KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma, went off like trains. They were on 70 in 5 overs before Sharma was dismissed LBW by Brad Wheel. He went for 30 off 16, but then KL Rahul just kept motoring on, didn't he? Hit a competition best 19 ball 50, although it was almost 56 as he tried to finish the game in style going over long on. But was caught by McLeod off mark. What wonderful innings for him. Saw him hit 9 boundaries, clearing the ropes on 3 occasions. Surya Kumar Yadav finished it off with a big 6 off Chris Greaves. That's the way to finish an innings, to claim the expected but very important win that puts India up into 3rd spot with just their game against Namibia to come. So I'll just quickly explain. So as we did explain in the last one, if New Zealand beat Afghanistan, which is coming up tomorrow, as we're recording this, it's Sunday tomorrow. If New Zealand beat Afghanistan, the Kiwis go through. That's it. Conversation over. Pakistan's through. New Zealand go through. But if Afghanistan win and then India win their final game, we're going to have a scenario where all 3 of those teams are going to finish on 6 points. So it's going to be all about net run rate. Yeah. And I've got to say, in this scenario, I know where my money's going.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to India.
That's a great segue to a slightly complicated graph. But essentially what you're seeing here is India have improved substantially over the competition. And their total strike rate now sits at 144 in the competition, which is only marginally behind England, who are in first in this competition. I think the issue when you look at this Indian team, they've been fantastic. The blue line going up on India is pace strike rate, 153, but they've only got a 112 strike rate against spin. So if you're going to attack the Indian team, it's got to be through spin. But they are the best power play batting unit in the competition all of a sudden, turned it around over the last few games, put themselves in a really good position. Likewise, if we touch on Scotland, on the left-hand graph, if you're watching on YouTube, they've got a 100 strike rate in the competition. You're not going to win any games of cricket when you've got a 100 strike rate overall. That is made up of an 89 strike rate against seam bowling. Seam bowling has absolutely stifled them time and time again throughout this competition, and overall just made it very, very difficult. And I think the other thing to touch on India is their spin attack has been horrendous so far in this competition. This time around, they turned it around really, really well. 59 for 4 from the spinners, a really solid performance. You expect India to win these games of cricket. You expect them to go and win well. Winning and knocking them off in 6 overs, I think, is that's where it's a bit of a kick in the teeth for Scotland, who will be disappointed.
Yeah, it's soul destroying for Scotland, and I'm sure India, if it wasn't for the situation they'd got themselves in, I'm sure India wouldn't have played the game in this way. It was a brutal attack, wasn't it? And it isn't necessary for India to do that against Scotland, unless you're absolutely behind it and you have to win all your games and you have to win them in absolute style. Like we said, they've got Namibia to finish, haven't they? So you expect India to win that other game. As for Scotland, they come back and they're going to finish things off against Pakistan. So it doesn't get any easier. You would expect Pakistan to round this competition out with 5 wins in 5 games and finish as the only unbeaten team in the competition. Maybe not, depending on how England got on today. I think we know. So I don't see Scotland being able to put a dent in the Pakistan record. And India, like I said, my money is now firmly in the Indian camp, unless, obviously, New Zealand do get that win. But if Afghanistan get the win, then absolutely. I worry for England in a little way in the qualifying, in the knockout stage of this competition, if Afghanistan win and if India get into that semi-final. So should we get on to how Group A has finished up today, Rob, with the last games?
We should. So huge games, mate. So that graphic is out of date. Huge game. It basically comes down to Australia versus South Africa in a shootout. Who's going to finish? If both teams win, who's going to finish on the higher net run rate?
Yeah, absolutely. And Australia, they backed themselves. They've been on a really good run of form. They went in unchanged and they claimed another win. That has to be said was a relative cruise, wasn't it, for the Aussies? Yeah. A Caribbean cruise. There you go, if you're a headline writer. They won by 8 wickets, thanks in large part to a superb 89 not out for David Warner. He found it was tough going, wasn't it, early on? We was talking about whether or not he'd keep his spot in the team. Such was his bad form. But he's firing now with this one. And he got them over the line and passed that 158 target that the West Indies had set. Aussies did that in 16.2 overs. I'd say that's a relative cruise. So the Windies, they got 157 for 7. Kieron Pollard, the captain, top scored with 44 off 31, whilst Evin Lewis, 29. Shimron Hetmyer, 27. Both put up a bit of resistance, didn't they? Josh Hazlewood led the Aussie bowling attack, 4 for 39, with a wicket each for Mitch Starc, Pat Cummins, and hero of the last outing, Adam Zampa. The reply was just ruthless. So we spoke about it for India, and Australia were exactly the same. They led the way. He led the way. 56 balls it took Warner to get to his 89. Mitch Marsh, he showed his stuff again. 53 off 32. Whilst Akeal, Hossain, and Gayle claimed the 2 wickets. So the Aussies finished this group now with 4 wins and 1 defeat. That's 8 points, and they had to wait then for the outcome of the England-South Africa result, as it would obviously come down to net run rate if South Africa were to record a win against leaders England, Rob. So if you want to briefly touch on the Aussies, and then we'll get straight into what happened in the South Africa-England game.
Yeah, so Aussies, good. Aussies look like a very, very good cricket team at the moment. They've grown in confidence since that first game, and they're starting to look like a really good team. I think the thing when you analyse the performance was the control that they're getting from the spin bowling department is astronomical. We've talked on Adam Zampa being exceptional in those middle overs, 10 wickets leading the way in the competition. But it's just time and time again you're seeing it. And when they can get a couple of overs, maybe 1, maybe 2 from a Glenn Maxwell in the middle that's not kind of blowing out the run rate, they become a very, very dangerous team, because then it's not Mitchell Marsh having to bowl 4 overs, it's Mitchell Marsh just having to chip in with a couple. So it puts them in a really, really good position. They were incredible in those middle overs today, dominated the West Indies, 97 for 1 from overs 17 to 15, a strike rate of 179. And this shows how strong that bowling unit is. I've said for a long time, this Australian bowling attack is one of the best in the world, regardless of format. But what you're seeing now is they've got the best strike rate from spin bowlers in the whole competition, just ahead of England and just ahead of Afghanistan. And you'll see New Zealand thrown into that lower quadrant of people that are good at strike rate of spin, strike rate of pace bowling. And the pace bowling isn't far off being exception as well, with South Africa as being the best strike rate unit going around in the competition. So if I'm going into this semi-final and I'm Pakistan, if I'm playing against Australia, which we're about to touch on in a second, I would not want to play against this Australian team because they're coming red hot at the right time. And David Warner, let's make no mistake, at the end of the IPL, I was wondering whether David Warner's career is on the bin. Like, he's stuck in the mud, mate. Like, he can't score runs in the IPL. Stuart Broad's got him in his left pocket still from 2 years ago. Is he going to play in the Ashes? And now we're seeing David Warner turn up and go, actually, I can stand there, I can hit. I don't like it when I see David Warner go down on one knee and try and reverse sweep stuff. I just like David Warner to hit the ball. And we saw his 65 against Sri Lanka, his 89 against the West Indies. David Warner's coming good at the right time. So are the Aussies, which is always horrendous for world cricket because that means we've got to watch a good Aussie team again.
This winter's getting interesting, isn't it? The Aussies are looking strong, aren't they? I really like that Mitch Marsh has got himself back in there, and he's quite high up the order as well, isn't he? He was batting at 3 or 4. He's a big player for them, and he seems to have hit a really, really good seam of form in the last few weeks, month or so. So he's another player that's going to add to them. Bowling attack looks quality, doesn't it? It's just world class. They're a danger. But did they make it, Rob? Did they qualify for the next stage? That's the big question. Let's answer that now. So let's get on to it. England-South Africa was the final game that we need to run through. And despite South Africa claiming a brilliant 10-run win over England in this one, their net run rate was just not good enough as they've missed out on qualifying for the semi-finals. They've been pipped by Australia into second place after both teams finished on 8 points, which is also the number of points that England finished on, obviously 4 wins and a defeat for all of the teams up there. Really, really tough going there for South Africa. But let's get on to this game first before we start passing our sympathies on to them. So Moeen Ali grabbed the early wicket of Reza Hendricks. It looked good at that point. But for England, enter Rassie van der Dusen. He struck a fantastic unbeaten 94 off just 60 balls. Quinton de Kock's fellow opener, the other opener, he got 34, whilst Aidan Markram came in and supported van der Dusen brilliantly through to the end of the innings. A wonderful half-century for Markram. His one, 52 off 25 in total. His 50 coming in 24 balls, 1 ball quicker than his previous 50 that he got a couple of games back. Only Moeen Ali and Ali Rashid took a wicket for England, who were on the receiving end of some fantastic and pretty brutal, but quite controlled hitting. It's got to be said, there was some really, really good cricket shots. It wasn't just slogging. Really good knocks from van der Dusen and Markram. And I'm really pleased to see Markram looking so good in this competition. So in reply, England made a really, really solid start, but Jason Roy had to retire her. He was in a lot of pain, wasn't he? We don't know exactly what it is. We think it might be a hamstring, but he was helped off the field. And that's a big worry. We'll talk about that at the end of this summary. Fellow opener Josh Butler went for 26 off 15 balls, caught Bavuma off the ball of Andrich Nokia. Bairstow came and went, but the middle order of Moeen Ali, 37 off 27, Dawid Malani got 30, Liam Livingston, 28 off 17. They kept the chase alive. Owen Morgan was there as well, 17 off 12. He tried as well. England kept going, didn't they? They kept going, but they just couldn't. Sava kept chipping away. And I think England just couldn't get that partnership going. It didn't help as well that Kagiso Rabada got himself a hat-trick in his final over, taking Wokes, Morgan and Jordan in 3 balls. So 179 for 8 in the end for England, 10 runs short. Rabada 3 for 48. Made his figures look a hell of a lot better because 48 or 4 overs is not Rabada-esque, is it? Dwayne Pretorius took 2 for 30 off his 3 overs, and Sabri Shamsi got himself 2 for 24. So a fantastic win for this South African team that were improving, but they just didn't get it going in the right direction quick enough, did they? And we were a little bit concerned about the way they were going out after their chases. And it came down to net run rate, basically, in the end. England's was superior, thankfully. Didn't panic about this at all, honest. And Australia's was just good enough, and I'm sure you'll show the table in a minute, just to see that they did pip them by about half a point net run rate, didn't they?
Yeah. This was such a good game of cricket. Mr. Commentator's getting it wrong. This is a fine competition, and this was a fine game of cricket. You look at it, you're coming out, and I'm skipping forward to the end here, but 15 overs down, you're at the middle overs. South Africa 118 for 2, England 125 for 3. It is game on. 16th over, South Africa went massive. 3 sixes off that Chris Wokes over. Liam Livingston hit 3 sixes in the same over off Rabada. Puts England in front. You go to the 17th over. England are still 5 runs in front, but they lose a wicket. The 2 wickets behind where South Africa was. And it was the final 2 overs, which was real the nail in the coffin, because after 18 overs, England still had a 5-run advantage on where South Africa was. South Africa hit 3 sixes in the final 2 overs. England hit 3 fielders on the boundary in the final over. And that is the crux of why England lost. Just that exact moment. Also, Owen Morgan does come under stick, but we give him praise when he gets it right. And I don't think he quite got it right today. And the reason I say that is I feel we should have bowled more spin. We bowled seam. The seamers went at a strike rate of 169 for England, 112 for 6. Yes, they picked up wickets, but yes, they went round the park. The spinners went at a strike rate of 120. That's quite a big difference between the two. And I feel we left some overs out there that we potentially could have gone and used instead for me. Moeen bowled 4, Adil Rashid bowled 4, but Livingston's been great in this competition. Yeah. If you turn that around and you're gone, you know what, we'd had a couple more overs of spin, it potentially might have been chasing 200, but likewise, you might have been chasing 170 instead. So I just look at this and I go, it's just a brilliant game of cricket played by 2 fantastic teams. And I think the thing that goes under the radar is Van der Dusen scored 100 in the warm-up against Pakistan was great. You see the graphic on screen for those on YouTube. Josh Butler's the best player in the competition. He's scoring at a massively high strike rate, most runs. Then you've got Rizwan and Azam from the Pakistan team and David Warner. The 5th and 6th best player in the competitions in terms of batting, which is scoring above the average strike rate and scoring more than the average runs, is Van der Dusen and Markram. They have been superb for this South African team. And put that alongside their incredibly measly bowling attack, which is exceptional. It is a very, very exceptional bowling attack who can just turn up, get it done, not have a problem at all. I think it's a shame for the competition that they're not going to be in the semi-finals because Pretorius has been pretty much the best bowler in the death throughout the competition. Nortiger, who's got several pronunciations of his name, has been pretty much the best bowler in the power play. And Rabada's always exciting to watch, even though a few times in this competition people have got hold of him. He still can pick up wickets. He's still fiery. I feel they're too good a team to be out at this stage of the competition. And I'll go out there and say if the Black Caps go through in the semi-final, I feel the South African team's better than the Black Caps. And one of the better teams in the competition, isn't it, in the semis?
Yeah, undoubtedly. I mean, if you said at the start of this group competition, you're going to play 5 games, you're going to win 4 and lose 1, you're going to expect to go through, aren't you? Yeah. It's simple as that. If you're only dropping 1 game. And all credit to South Africa. They've looked a good unit. It's just the way it is. In the format of this competition, there's only 2 teams in each group can go through. That's it. You know, run rate was there. They'll kind of kick themselves a bit, won't they? They didn't go a bit quicker. They didn't go harder at it in certain situations. But it is what it is. Sorry, sad for South Africa, but England deserved it. They just weren't quite on the game today. And like you said, the difference between a win and a loss was hitting the guys on the field rather than hitting or clearing the rope. It's interesting just what you were talking about with the bowling attack. It seems bizarre that Livingston didn't bowl today. Only 1 6 went off, the 8 overs of the spin of Adil Rashid and Moeen Ali. You look at that, there's another 7, there's another 9 sixes, and that's off Wokes, Jordan and Wood. I didn't get a chance to watch this game because obviously I was at the football this afternoon. But, you look at this and it's like something's not quite right. No, Livingston obviously doesn't look right. Wood, talk to me about Mark Wood. Obviously, he came in for the injured Timor Mills, so Wood was the obvious man to come in. How did he go? He went for 47 off his 4 overs. Is that reflective of how he bowled, or is that, or was he a little bit unfortunate?
I think at times England were unfortunate. There was quite a few edges flying down to the boundary for 4 and things like that. But I just don't feel he's the right bowler for T20 cricket. I don't feel his variations are good enough. You watched him bowling slower balls. And he bowls a little cutter where he rolls his hands on it, but he bowled it halfway down. You're bowling halfway down with pretty short boundaries, and the ball's going 96 metres into the stands. That's one delivery out of his spell, but for me, it's the wrong guy. And I think there's a reason you've seen a huge shift in where England's bowling performance was to where it is now, and that's the missing Mills that's no longer part of this team at the moment, which I think is a little bit of a shame because he gives you stability. He gives you quality variations. The variation distance, so he bowls ultra fast, but his slower ball is ultra slow. And that is really, really hard for a batsman to contend with. It's not like a 5 mile an hour difference. It's about a 15, 20 mile an hour difference. So if you're off time with it, you don't pick it, you're in a really difficult situation where you need a Rishabh Pant one hand full extension to try and finish the shot and get it over the stands.
Yeah, and there were well disguised slow balls as well, weren't there? There was a real subtlety to Mills. I mean, he's an absolute class performer in T20 format, so he's a huge, huge miss. I hope Wood can get it right. I wonder if they'll be brave and go Reece Topley in the semi-final, but we'll see. That's going to be a brave, brave move. Is it coming home, Rob?
Is it coming home? I don't know. I actually think whoever winds up, if India wind up in the semi-final, and you've got Australia, Pakistan, England, and whoever the big four,
you said it. Yeah,
you've got the big 4 team. I think that is incredibly hard to tell. The fact that South Africa's just turned up and rolled England, and we've been going, well, England are the best team in the competition, kind of puts it. You know, it's what happens on the day. What happens? Does Josh Buttler hit a fielder at mid-off, or does it go just over him? You know, they're the margins that you're talking about in cricket. And are you good enough to go and take your chances when they come? Because if the answer's no, well, you're not going to be doing very good. I think the thing with South Africa going out is their batting strike rate against pace bowling was not very good throughout the whole competition. It was good, but it wasn't exceptional compared to the others. And if you're going to look at why did South Africa go out? The batting didn't back up the bowling good enough. Against spin, they were great. 4th best in the competition out of this Super 12 stage. But pace bowling, they didn't quite get it going enough. The other one I want to say, and we touched on Northager, and I've got a graph. It's not on screen, but basically it shows the economy rate of bowlers with the strike rate of bowlers. And Mujib Rahman, who hopefully will be back for the Black Caps game, number 1, great butchering of his name. Second best bowler in the competition is Northager. It's about a 4.5 to a 5 economy rate throughout the whole competition. He's bowled at the start, the middle, the death, and he's got a lot of wickets as well. That's probably the best seamer in the competition that isn't going to go and play in the semi-final.
Naughty numbers then from Nokia. Naughty.
Naughty. Very, very
Let's call him naughty. Yeah, let's call him naughty. So, I mean, you could argue, not going to dwell on this any longer, but you could argue that if this was one game longer, this competition, South Africa would probably find themselves qualifying. They seem to be a team that's really picked up some speed, got a head of pace, whatever you want to call it, and they could have driven themselves forward into the knockout stage. But it is what it is. England, Australia go through. Pakistan, New Zealand looking like they're the teams that will go through. At least it's in New Zealand's hands at the moment. But if they do drop that game against Afghanistan, it is all to play for with those teams. Let's finish up with England, though, Rob. Big news, obviously, of this game. England have already had their issues with this squad. Sam Curran had to pull out, didn't he? He was replaced by Tom Curran. Timo Mills went out. He was replaced by Reece Topley. The squad doesn't have much cover now. With Jason Roy, you would imagine, seeing him on crutches at the end of the game, you would imagine he is missing the competition. I think he was potentially in tears, wasn't he, at one point? He knows the severity of the injury. We all know ourselves, if a hamstring or something goes, you know you're done. So Roy goes. Sam Billings is the only man in the squad that's batting cover. You've got David Willey, Tom Curran, and Reece Topley as the other members of the squad. So I assume England are allowed to call somebody up. I assume. I hope they have it. I don't see why not. I mean, at other parts of the competition you have. So if England can bring somebody up a cover, because I'm not quite sure I want Billings in the team. Maybe they rejig it in a different way. But if it's not Billings, then who is it, Rob? I've got a certain name I'd like to just throw in first.
If it's me, I don't know I can't remember who the reserves are.
Can I say it? Go
on.
Alex Hales, get him in, Owen. Get on the phone, Alex. Come on, get Hales in.
Oh, what a comeback that would be. Come in and win the semi-final and final for England.
100 up in the semis, 50 in the final. There we go. Everyone's happy.
I can't remember who the reserves are from the teammate to say who it would be. If it was me, I'd bring Billings in the middle order because he can go and he does play spin well and he can play seam well and he can score quickly, he can run well, fields well, does a lot of things well. He's good at cricket. That's why he's in the England team.
He's a good cricketer.
He's a good cricketer. Bairstow to open. World class opener. I still find it hard to fathom that he's not opening for this England team, and that's purely because of how good Roy and Butler have been. But he's a world-class opener. He opens well in the IPL when he plays or when he opens, and he opens well in one-day cricket. Natural guy, going. But for England, this is difficult. 2 games, they've lost potentially their best bowler in the competition so far, especially in terms of being a seam bowler. Mills has been absolute world-class. And now they've lost a key cornerstone opener to their team.
Yeah.
It's like, it's huge. Where do you go now?
It's tough, isn't it? It's a really tough break for them. I mean, like we spoke about David Warner, you could speak the same about Jason Roy, couldn't you? Come into the competition with a bit of a question mark over him. He's not quite the same player he used to be in his performances, but he was starting to show that again, wasn't he? He was starting to kind of hit his stride again. So it's a massive, massive loss. I think Bairstow going up is going to cover that over. More responsibility on Morgan. He's going to have to get himself front and centre now, isn't he? More responsibility on Liam Livingston. He was trying to hit the ball home today, wasn't he? I think it was one bounce and in his back garden. So, there are players that need to step up, and it's going to have to be a rejig of that middle order, isn't it? Like you say, Billings coming in a bit later on, or potentially one of the bowlers. Maybe David Willey could come in. He can strike a good ball. So at least he's there with a bat as well. And it gives them that left arm option if they choose to stay with Wood rather than swapping out Wood for Topley. So big question marks with England selectors. It'd be really interesting to see which way they go. But yeah, I mean, we keep saying it. Bring it on. Really looking forward to what comes next. But England in the semi-finals is a guarantee, and we'll see if they see the Aussies in the final.
When you're going into the semi-finals, you want to have momentum. And I feel like England have had that momentum bubble burst. Tyrell Mills has been expensive in this competition. He's got an economy rate of 8, but his strike rate is the best out of an England bowler. So he's always taking wickets. He'll go for a 4 or a 6 in the over, but he's going to get you a wicket, which is going to stop things. Alternatively, you can look at Chris Wokes' projection, who is currently the worst bowler in this England setup throughout the competition. He has been pretty abysmal. His strike rate is the worst out of the England bowlers, and his economy rate is second worst. Liam Livingston, for what it's worth, his economy rate is the second best out of England bowlers and should have bowled today. And I'm gonna that's the hill that I'm going to die on today.
Absolutely. Yeah. We'll once we get through the games over the weekend, obviously, the finish off of Group B. We'll have to jump on and obviously talk about the who's in the semi-finals, who's playing who, and just a little bit more about what we think the England setup might be or the England team might be, especially if they do bring somebody in. But yeah, there's options there, isn't it? And yes, Livingston should have bowled today.
Should have bowled. Final predictions for the last big games of cricket: New Zealand, Afghanistan.
Oh, the competition needs Afghanistan to beat New Zealand just to make it an absolute nail-biting finish. But I think New Zealand get the win. I think they just have enough to get over Afghanistan, and this is all null and void. So then it'd be England, Australia, Pakistan, New Zealand, where they are at the moment. And yeah, shake it out from there.
I agree. I think Southee, Santner, even though he doesn't take wickets, has been exceptionally good going under 6. Southee under 6. Jimmy Neesham, you're getting under 6 and over. Trent Boult, 6 and a bit. Ish Sodhi picks up wickets and doesn't go for over 8. However, he's got concussion protocol going on after getting hit by a ball straight back in his face. Adam Milne's the one for me. Afghanistan's bowling lineup, if the spinners do well. So Mujib bowls really well. Rashid Khan bowls really well. Mohamed Nabi's been absolutely horrendous in this competition, going at almost 9s. Easy for me to say from the podcast seat. That's the thing. How do Kiwis play against spin? It's going to be an interesting game of cricket. So we'll be back at the end of that, and we'll do some preview pods for semi-finals and all that jazz and excitement coming up. Rich, thank you so much for your time, mate. It is a really exciting World Cup. Sky Sports commentators telling us it's a crap World Cup. It's an absolutely brilliant World Cup with some absolutely fantastic cricket and some okay podcasting going on. So we'll catch you guys next time.